Hey everybody, this is Mr. Sanchez, and this is the first video I've done for my history classes. But I think that as we move forward, we'll start getting more and more of these now that people are logging in, signing in, realizing that, oh yes, this is actual school, and if I don't do the work, it's going to start piling up really, really quickly. So as your history teacher, I realize that some of your other subjects kind of take uh, precedent or start a little bit taking more of your attention at the start. So I didn't want to give too much work at the beginning of the week, but now we are kind of, getting enough people in here that we can discuss our new unit and discuss what history class is going to look like for you going forward. So a couple of quick announcements, and then I'm going to get into a short lecture today. And really the only assignment is going to be on Friday. I'm going to go ahead and post that on Friday. So today you just need to simply kind of listen to the lecture, take notes. I'll tell you what to make sure you know, and if you want to write those key terms down and people and dates, then you can. The great thing about this is you can pause as long as you need and do so. But first, let's go over the announcements. All right, so the first main thing that I need to make sure you are doing, and if you were watching this video, you're probably already logging in correctly, but you do need to make sure that you go into your Google Classroom and you must finish the first assignment from the other day. So go to your classwork. It is the Monday, March 30th assignment. If you want to change the world, you have to start by making your bed. You need to watch the video and fill out this form. As you can see, I've had about half the class complete it. I still need the rest of you to do that. Okay, if I start, actually what's going to happen is next week, if I still have students that I have not seen log on, and I will have to start calling home and talking to parents, and good luck explaining why you haven't been doing your work for an entire week. But hopefully we don't have to get to that and everybody gets their work in. So that leads me to my second thing, which is going to be that I will start taking attendance on Friday. It'll be very simple. All you need to do is log in to Google Classroom, click on the link that I will provide on Friday, and log in and answer a simple question of yes or no. And once you do that, you will have completed your attendance for the week. And every teacher is actually going to be doing that in some way, meaning that if we don't hear from you, we're going to contact you and make sure that you are accessing the work, okay? Because yes, there are technical problems, there's issues, internet devices, we get all of that, but there are also students that have access and that are just not doing it. And we need to know the difference, okay? So if you're having problems with your history or with any of your classes, contact me, contact your teachers. There's a link here that I'll actually post as well on to Google Classroom that you can click on if you're having problems with your device. Really, nothing. You shouldn't have any technical problems. If you can access the internet for me, you should be fine. So, and another announcement, I will be going for office hours. My office hours are on Monday. They will be at 10 a.m. for 1 to 2 hours, depending on if people are logging in or not. Okay, so today we're going to start our new unit. If you're having trouble understanding it or want some extra discussion about it or go over the PowerPoint again or whatever it may be, those are a great time to get live one-on-one time with me. Otherwise, email and using the Remind app are your best ways to contact me if you have a small issue like, hey, did you get that assignment? Or, hey, I'm going to not be able to do the work for today. Can I turn it in tomorrow? Yes. Okay, those are the types of things that you can get on email or the Remind app. All right, so yesterday, your assignment was to read chapter 28. I think I had it here. Maybe I didn't post it. Yeah, there it is. So your homework was to read chapter 28 and to take note on the key terms. And today I'm going to go over what you have read and talk a little bit about what we're starting with. Okay, so here is chapter 28. This is kind of what to expect as we move forward. We're talking about the Renaissance and Reformation. They're two separate things, but they're going to take place in the same area in Europe, okay? So when we take a look at our map, of course, Europe, the small place that you have a lot of countries you probably recognize or have even heard in the news lately. So we have our main players of England, France, Spain, Portugal will also come into the mix, Italy, and really that's going to be our big players in terms of what we have. We have the Holy Roman Empire, which is modern day Germany for the most part, as well as Austria and Czechoslovakia or the Czech Republic. You also have Belgium and Switzerland, some other countries, but the England, France, Spain, Italy, Portugal are going to be the main players when we talk about the Renaissance and the Reformation. So really quickly, the Renaissance is basically our rebirth. That's the definition of Renaissance. And when we say rebirth, we're basically looking back to some of the golden ages of human achievement, specifically Greece and Rome, and trying to work on those things instead of trying to invent new ways of life. So we're kind of going back to the classics, like the good old days. That's what the Renaissance is. I'll explain that in more detail. We also are going to discuss the Reformation. This is more of the religious side of the Renaissance. So if Renaissance is more of a literature, artistic type of rebirth, the Reformation is more of a rebirth when it comes to religion. And at the time, again, there's only one Christian church, the Roman Catholic Church. But as the Reformation expands, you're going to see more religions start to pop up, more Christian religions, I should say. And the Catholic Church, in an effort to keep up, will also make a bunch of changes because they got a little bit out of control in terms of power. So people started to fight back in a way, and we'll go over that as well. But the first thing we're going to go over is the Renaissance, okay? So again, you're reading for chapter 28. This gives you an introduction of it, and hopefully you were able to read through that. You have some of your key terms. Perspective, we'll talk about what perspective means. We also have a patron, which is the part of the arts. You got to see how Italy started to be the birthplace of the Renaissance and the idea of humanism, okay? So I don't need to go over these things again with you. If you did not read chapter 28, please read it on your own. But I do want to have a PowerPoint with a little kind of my instruction when it comes to our intro to the Renaissance. So this will be the intro to the Renaissance. We'll come back to that picture. So let me pull up my PowerPoint and we will get started on it. Okay, so the Renaissance. If you recognize this picture here, then you actually know a little bit of the Renaissance already. This is one of the most famous paintings ever. It's called the Mona Lisa, and it is a product of the Renaissance. In fact, one might even say that it is a symbol of the Renaissance because we look at it today and we maybe don't understand what's so special about this painting of this strange woman who we don't even know. It's not a famous person or anything like that. But when you gain a little bit of knowledge, you start to understand that this was monumental in creating new achievements in art, as well as even some science, physics, and stuff like that. So before the Mona Lisa, before Leonardo da Vinci created this picture, this artwork, we really didn't have this idea of background and foreground. Okay, so the background are all the things you see that are tiny, right? We know these trees or these buildings or whatever's in this background, they are not tiny. Mona Lisa is not some sort of giant that is dwarfing these things. We know they're small because they're in the background. Believe it or not, this was new when it comes to artwork. The idea that you could make things small on a piece of paper or a canvas and make it appear that it is far away was not yet invented, if you want to use that word. So that's one of the great achievements that Da Vinci is able to do in this picture, why it's so famous. The other thing is that a lot of times artwork was actually a religious thing only. If you look at paintings before this, chances are 9 out of 10 they're going to be about Jesus or some sort of thing from the Bible, whether it be Adam and Eve, Satan, God, whatever. This has no religious context. It is not religious at all. You cannot find any religion in it. This was opening up a whole new idea that, yeah, you can create artwork that doesn't have to deal with God. And so Da Vinci releases this to the public, and it's opening the eyes in a number of different ways. Then you can also add to the spookiness of it the uh, illusion. We hadn't seen illusions or kind of tricks of the eye, because if you see this painting in person, no matter where you're standing, and you can even do it now if you want, lean to the right and lean to the left, it'll look like Mona Lisa is following you. She's always staring at you. It doesn't matter where you're at. It always looks like she's staring at you. So this is an optical illusion. Of course, she's not doing that. She's not alive. So another new kind of beautiful part of the Renaissance being displayed here by Da Vinci. What also is cool about Da Vinci is that he isn't just a painter, he is actually a scientist. He studies the human body with anatomy. He is trying to create airplanes and do all sorts of things. Very diverse, very not really worried about the religious side of things, but more of the beauty of what humankind can do. Okay, so that's the Renaissance, and that's why you're going to see Mona Lisa as kind of a symbol of that. But let's start with the end of the Middle Ages. Okay, we left off the end of the Middle Ages with kind of the decline of feudalism, which was that triangle where it had the kings on top, the peasants on the bottom, because of three major things. Okay, the bubonic plague, which is kind of scary since we're seemingly going through another plague right now. I wouldn't call it a plague, it's more of an epidemic, right? That's what we're calling it. But the bubonic plague killed 1/3 of Europe's population, leaving a lot of workers free to leave the land and to pursue their own desires and not be tied to the land in some type of slavery. We also had a big war that lasted a long time and killed a lot of people, and people went off to the war and didn't come back. And when they left, their workers also left. We also have this thing called the Great Schism, which I've talked about a little bit, but it's the breaking of the two churches, the Eastern Orthodox and the Roman Catholic Church. And it's a big split. We talked about that with in the Byzantine Empire with a new idea kind of branching off over there compared to Roman Catholic, although the religion is basically the same, just a couple of things. Remember, whether or not priests should be allowed to marry, whether or not you should have idols or statues to worship in the church, all sorts of things like that. You can look that up if you forgot exactly what that was. But basically, you have a bunch of changes and a bunch of people getting through some really terrible times in the Middle Ages. Remember, we started our discussion calling them the Dark Ages. They don't last forever, though. And thinking back on it, how would you feel about life during this time when 1/3 of the population is dead? There is war going on. There's seemingly a disconnect between religion from people. How would you feel about life? It would be kind of scary, right? It would make you want to kind of try to find a purpose in life. For a lot of centuries, people were just happy to die and with the idea that they're going up to heaven. That's what people's lives were about. Um, but once these things start to subside, start to end, the bubonic plague stops killing people, the wars end, the schism is far in the rearview mirror. People decide that they want to do something about this. They want to make this dark ages go away and that this world could be and should be a beautiful thing. And that's where the Renaissance is truly born. It's people that want to celebrate the life and the ability of the human spirit, almost an individual celebration. The idea that everybody can achieve something magnificent if we use our brains instead of just waking up at 4 in the morning to go on the farm and hope that you are living a life that's good enough to get you into heaven, right? We can now embrace the human spirit. So, how did they feel about the church then? And how would they be able to express this new spirit? Well, no surprise, the capital, and I'll go back to my map here really quickly. The capital of the Roman Catholic Church is in Italy, right? It's in Rome, right here. This is the capital of the Roman Catholic Church. So, as you might be able to guess, people around this area are going to be the first ones to really embrace this new idea that humans can do wonderful things and that it's not all about the church, right? Because they're so close to it and so tied to it that it's easy to want to branch out. Plus, the other thing that's really important to remember here is that there's a lot of money around here. The church has become very, very powerful and accumulated a lot of wealth. So you have a lot of wealth and a lot of connection to the church, which leads to Italy, basically this part from here to here, being the birthplace of the Renaissance. And so how does Italy, what does that look like then when it comes to Italy being the birthplace of the Renaissance? Well, you have art and writing and thought. These are the things that are really going to get people discussing, and this is what we're going to call the rebirth. Rome, of course, was the capital of the great Roman Empire, where a lot of wonderful things were achieved by humankind. And people in Italy knew about those things, and they started to go back and research them and look at them a little bit closer to understand what made them so great in the first place. And if you had something great already, you can build off of that and make something even better instead of what was happening before the 1300s and in the Middle Ages, where people were only worried about religion and not worried about what the Greeks and Romans had already accomplished. It's like trying to reinvent the wheel again, if you've ever heard that expression, trying to reinvent something that's already been invented. That's my refrigerator. Sorry about that. And these are going to lead to even better things. So Greece and Rome, as we've stated, have done wonderful, wonderful things. And if people build off of those, they're going to get even better types of values and styles and art. And not just art, but also thought. One of the big things about the Renaissance is what the human being is capable of and what rights they should have. Governments and the idea of how a king or a elected official should run a country. Those types of things are also part of the Renaissance. So why Italy? I've already kind of mentioned that a little bit, but remember that Italy is also kind of in that center of Europe, leading to a lot of trade that comes through, and these large city-states are going to grow and grow and grow, and eventually these city-states, and you can see them here in the map again, in Florence, and there's a couple of other ones down further south that are going to be very, very wealthy. And when you have money and you don't have to go to work, here's what I was actually looking for. So you have the Kingdom of Naples, you have Florence, you have all of these, Milan, different types of city-states. They're not states, they're not countries, there's something in the middle of all of those things, but they become very, very wealthy. And once you have wealth and you don't have to go to work, you want to kind of pass the time. What are you going to do with your life with all this money and wealth? Well, the famous family we're going to study is the Medicis. Okay, they are very, very wealthy, and they are going to be the one that's kind of spurn the idea that people should go out and make art and should create literature and should have thought. So they become very, very wealthy through banking and through you don't really need to know exactly how they get to be so rich, but yes, banking is the basic way of saying it. And they kind of go on this idea that, hey, if we pay people to create art and we make them want to create something beautiful, perhaps we will see those things. So you're going to get an explosion of art and architecture. The idea that buildings can also be a form of artwork. These things are going to start to pop up. So take a look at this picture here really quickly. Again, it's showing this wealth of the Medici family. You can see the castle in the background. The pictures showing how much influence this family has over everyone. And here are a few pictures of Florence today to kind of get you into this town, this famous town, right? So take a look. Pause the video at any of those moments as well. And this leads us to our next thing that I want to go, and it'll be our last thing for today, and it's called humanism. So humanism is the focus on the idea that humans are the best. To put it very simply, that human beings have potential to do wonderful, wonderful things. I'm sitting here on a computer talking to my class and have the internet and have PlayStation 4 and iPhones and all sorts of things because humans have invented those things. They didn't just accidentally get invented. They were invented because human beings have wonderful power in their minds and potential. And this is the idea of humanism. Okay. We also have the Mona Lisa. Again, remember it was a symbol. No religious context here. This is what we call a secular society. Not saying that people aren't going to church or believing in God, but realizing that you can have things that don't need to be explained by God, but rather you can explain them through science and through facts and stuff like that. Not to say that religion didn't have a place for a lot of people at this time. It did, for sure. But, when we look up at the stars, is it, and this is a great question I guess you can ask yourself too, is it enough to just say, yeah, God put the moon there and that's why it's there? Or do you want to look at why is the moon there and does it have any effect on us directly? Where did it come from? These are the types of questions that people in a secular society would ask. And that's this type of world that we're moving to now. With this obviously becomes an increased understanding of the world. When you start to realize why the moon is there in the first place, you get to think, okay, well, if the moon orbits the Earth, that means that there's a gravitational pull. Maybe the Earth is not the center of the universe, but rather it is orbiting something like the sun. And maybe the sun is not the center of the entire universe, but it rather is orbiting a center of a galaxy. And the galaxies are so. These are the types of increased understandings. Once you understand one thing, it opens the doors to understand other things. If you just believed that the moon was put there because God put it there, you would never worry about galaxies or planets or solar systems or the sun. It would just kind of end there. So you see why this is an increased understanding of the world. In fact, humanities. This is kind of one of the subjects that you're taking right now in history. It's part of the humanities. It's the idea that human beings are capable, wonderful, and brilliant creatures, and they need to unlock their potential. So that's what humanism is. So there you go. That's our lecture. That's going to do it for today. I'm going to do a couple of these throughout. We're going to do some reading. We'll do some activities. We'll do some assignments. And each and every day, hopefully you get a little bit more out of this class. But for now, that's going to do it. What I want you to do is kind of understand what I was saying throughout this video. If you need to rewatch it a couple times, feel free to do so. And get ready for an assignment on Friday that is going to pull from humanism, the Medicis, the idea of Renaissance as a rebirth, and we'll do some stuff on that for Friday. Okay, so that's going to do it for today. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe and contact me if you have any questions. For now, Sanchez out.